Hello and welcome to Sovereign RPG. This is the fourth time in 2 days that I'm going to be making a video, but they keep just giving me more and more information. And just recently, literally an hour after they announced the fact that they have a new faction in Eve Echoes, CCP Rax came to me and gave me answers to 15 questions I gave him months ago that I completely even forgot that I gave him. So this will be talking with the devs number 2. We're going to start off with a couple of smaller questions first, and then we're going to go with a big one and a couple of smaller questions, and so it's not just loads of small ones and the big ones at the end, or the big ones at the beginning and the small ones at the end. So we're going to go through it just little by little. And the first two questions that we have up: do we have a number of pre-registrations since the end of the beta? They can't give us that information. Do we have any ideas what the peak online player count was or average daily logins for the beta? They also cannot give us that information. So there's first two questions out of the way where we didn't actually get any answers. But the next question is, I believe one thing will truly set Echoes apart from the crowd is to take a leaf out of EVE Online's book with regards to in-game events. Will we have events like tournaments and dev events to look forward to in the future? Yes, they've already started planning some future events, and we are happy to take suggestions from our community. Now, this is mirrored through a lot of the answers. To give your suggestions to the devs, go into the suggestions channel in the Discord, give them your suggestions. Ask, they want your feedback. Give them the feedback that they need to make this game better for everyone. If there's something in one of these questions you don't agree with, then just go in there and go to the suggestions, go to the feedback, tell them that they don't agree with something that they're doing. Otherwise, they're not going to change anything if no one tells them that it's wrong. So we're going on to the next question with regards to Alpha and Omega subs. Will Omega be obtainable in-game with ISK? And yes, that's a resounding yes. They are following EVE Online's free-to-play model where Alpha State clones will be able to buy Plex with ISK earned in-game to upgrade their accounts to Omega State. I mean, we pretty much knew that that was going to be a thing, but it's nice to have some, like, we have to set in stone on there, so that's quite good. I quite like that. Moving on. So I threw this sort of curveball question in there just to see if we can get a little bit of answer out of it, maybe glean some information, but no. I'm sure you won't be able to answer this one, but it is worth a shot. Will the monthly sub for Omega be monthly and less or equal to that of EVE Online? To be decided. We are still working on market research to find the best solution. So we have no information on that yet, which was, I knew I wasn't going to get answered, but I tried anyway. Will there be any mechanic to minimize structure spam, such as requiring resources to be maintained, for example? For instance, EVE Online has fuel, but adding other resources for upkeep would be a good deterrent to structure spam. So basically they've just told us there will be fuel to run some structure modules. So maybe not all of them need fuel. That's what I'm getting from this, but structures are pretty expensive. So they're saying that, like, it's not going to be like EVE Online where everyone and their mum, like, I can go in solo. I've just opened up 6 accounts and I've already bought a station, and I did it 2 days ago. It's really simple, and it's less than $1 billion ISK now to buy a station. It's like 400 million, 500 million, 600 million, depending on which one you want. And they say that the anchor points for structures like outposts and stations will be limited. We already knew that information, but it's definitely good to have that set in stone in word print. So we'll move on to, will there be ships introduced to Echoes in the future that will not be in EVE Online and Echoes exclusive? Well, we already know the answer to that because we have a new faction. With new faction comes new ships, new stations, new bed. Just yes. That answer is yes, and it's great news. We need some changes. And moving on, there was a question that I asked, but this question was before we found out about the Capsuleer outpost. So it's just basically, what are the personal fortizars and why are they there? What is a personal station? Is it like a player town in Black Desert? And there's basically said the official name for a Capsuleer outpost, which would be player owned, not by a corporation, but we already know all this information. Moving on, we know how it worked in EVE Online during launch with regards to NULLSEC and it being colonized. How will this work in EVE Echoes? We have been told that ITCs will be player built. Will there still be NPC space in NULLSEC and NPC stations? And they're saying we will have similar mechanics as EVE Online to enable players to capture systems through their corporations and build their own space cities. Weird words, space cities, like space cities. Why say space cities and not space stations? In the next group of questions, I'll ask about that wording, the space cities. So corporations build their space cities. So maybe we're colonizing planets because a city isn't really in space. It's a weird one. We'll have to go more deep on that one. In addition, we will also provide a war mechanic so that you can fight against other groups, and we will still have NPC space and stations in NULLSEC that allow players to find shelter. Now, I don't know if this means it will be like it was in the beta where every other system had NULLSEC NPC station in it, because that'd be kind of silly, because you can just stock all your stuff up in those stations and it'll never be touched. Or it'll be like EVE Online where there's only certain parts of NPC space that have NPC stations and everything else is player built, which I'm more leaning towards, but that is quite a hardcore, not so casual mobile gamey way of doing it, but that's what I would prefer. So there are a lot of people curious about if there will be an Echoes version of the CSM. Now, if you don't know what a CSM is, the Council of Stellar Management, is basically, it's like voting for the president, but you'll be voting for 14 presidents. So like they'll go up and give all their speeches and say, oh, well, you should vote for me for this, you should vote for me because of this, and blah, blah, blah. I will do this, I will make sure that this part of space is HiSec gets a big word in, I'll make sure that wormholes get a big word in, I'll make sure that NULLSEC gets a big word in. But it's basically like, I don't want to get into the politics of why I believe the CSM isn't a good thing in EVE Online anymore. It started off as a great thing and it just ended up being a shit show. Hopefully, if it does get implemented into EVE Echoes, we can make it better. We can make it great again. Can't believe I just said that. I'm gonna cut that out or leave it there and make myself sound like a dick, but okay. So they have said for the time being, we are gathering all of the feedback we can through our community, mostly on Discord. Creating a separate CSM is being evaluated, but probably wouldn't happen until after global release. Global release. So like these wordings, I might be reading too much into it. I might be just going paranoid after running through all of the like mystery posts and digging deep and finding like hidden images, and don't get me started on that again. We intend to gradually increase our efforts in communicating with our community over time, and creating some sort of player elected council is a very viable idea down the line. I think it'll be a good idea, mainly because you should vote for Sovereign. Vote for Sovereign. Seems like it would need to be something down the line once we realize what's going on and once people start getting a footing. I just don't want it to be like it is in EVE Online, where the biggest groups, the biggest alliances just vote for their leader and they become a CSM. I don't want it to be like that, because that just doesn't work, because all of the largest alliances will get the most say in a situation. Now, they don't have as much power as people believe, but it still has a tipping point. So like if you it was for years there was never a wormholer on the CSM, so we never got any wormhole love. Not that we needed it, because we made more money than everyone else in New Eden, but there was never our own representation for a wormholer for a long time. Now we got those questions out of the way, we'll get into the big ones, the ones you've been waiting for. These ones for me, I believe, are the most important. I mean, these other ones are important as well, the ones that we've had before, but I don't believe that these next ones are big in my opinion. So let's get into the first one. In the last Q&A, we had a question about no HiSec PvP. This seems to be highly exploitable, with players being able to flee to HiSec and be completely safe. Do we have any countermeasures in mind? War decks as an example. At the current stage of the game, we want to make HiSec a completely safe training ground for new players. There are a lot of new players that have no experience playing EVE Online or EVE Echoes, and we want them to have a chance to experience the game without the risk of being attacked as soon as they undock. Now that is strange to me, because CCP have said for as long as I can remember that newer players getting podded in HiSec and griefed in HiSec had nothing to do with the fact like players leaving. That was the biggest reason players left. Everyone knew it, but everyone seems to use it as an excuse that it isn't. But it is, which is, if it wasn't, then EVE Echoes wouldn't have a no PvP HiSec, that is all. The resources in HiSec space aren't as lucrative as for those found in low or NULLSEC, so they won't fulfill the needs of experienced players. This fact, along with other features, will encourage players to venture further out into less secure systems to experience encounters with other players. Now, I know that Capsular Outpost will not be allowed in HiSec, so that'll be one reason why you will leave HiSec if you want to have your own personal station, which is great. We knew that. But that will help to bring some more content into the PvP area. We have heard our players' concerns about being able to jump back and forth between HiSec and low security spaces, and are looking into how they could be addressed. We encourage our players to share suggestions and feedback on this topic as well. If you have something you want to say about this, because I don't believe it's such a big deal that they can go back and forth through HiSec and LowSec and hide their stuff in HiSec. It's a nightmare hauling stuff out anyway. if you need to have stuff in NULLSEC, you can just hide it in an NPC station. Like, it's not a massive big deal. Every low-sec system has NPC stations. You can hide it in non-attackable stations all the time. I don't understand why everyone makes such a big deal out of this. But at the end of the day, it was a question that needed to be asked, and we had the answer. They don't really have a way of dealing with it at the moment. But any suggestions from you guys, go into Discord, let them know. So the next one, which is probably going to piss off some people, because I hear this question quite a lot. Like I've actually heard from a few people daily if I know the answer to this yet. The fleet sizes in EVE Echoes were set to 10. Will these be expanded, especially considering the number of players that have signed up for pre-registry? We are considering a joint fleet with more players in a group. The purpose of the small fleets is to increase communication in large fleet battles, to make it more challenging for larger fleets. So basically it's they're just trying to limit engagement sizes because of the tie-dye issue in EVE Online is probably one of the factors. The fact that there's literally a million people have registered, pre-registered, up to 1 million people, and it might have broken that by now. Last time I spoke to the devs, it was up to just under 1 million pre-registrations. So they're trying to limit engagement size. But I don't understand, if they're going to have a sort of a joint fleet thing, why don't you just have a fleet with wings? I don't understand why they would like, or just keep it at 10-man fleets and have it as smaller engagements. I love smaller engagements. I hate the big fleet fights, because the big fleet fights are boring as shit and you are just a number and you mean nothing. It doesn't really matter if you have any skill or not. You just have to be lucky enough not to get blown up by the 500 people aiming at your fleet. There's no skill involved. The only skill involved in large fleet battles is the FC and his decisions that he makes during the fight, where to move certain aspects of his fleet, how to get certain ships, make sure everyone is in the right positions, doing the right job. The FC is the only person who is skilled in a large fleet battle. The only person who can actually make a difference is that one person. Now in smaller fleet battles, any individual player can and will affect the battle. Small fleet engagements for me is a massive bonus. Please let me know down below what you think about that particular question. I'm very happy that they're going to be keeping the fleet sizes small. It makes content much better for everyone. I know some of you do want your large fleet battles, but you just, I don't even know. We'll move on from that one, because there's a heated debate that we can have in Discord or down below in the comments. Please let me know. So next we have, what are CCP's thoughts on multi-boxing emulators in EVE Echoes? Now I know this is going to upset a few people. This will upset a few people. I multi-boxed in the beta. Everyone knows that. I'm not hiding it. I did do it. In EVE Online, you have alpha accounts and you can only log in one alpha account at a time. Every account would have to be Omega for you to log them all on at the same time. Right now I have 6 accounts open and Omega'd in EVE Online for a project that I'm working on for a YouTube series. And I can log them all at the same time, but if they're all alpha, you can only log in one at a time. The problem is with phones is that each phone is basically like having its PC, because they can't block your IP from having multiple alpha accounts on. They can only block the system that you're playing on. And then you have the emulators, which is basically opening an Android device multiple times. So it's like just opening 6 phones on your computer. So here's the answer. We prefer that players experience the game through mobile devices, which would mean they would struggle to multi-box. Because it is quite difficult to multi-box when you have phones. Like, I've seen some mental Chinese guys with like these stick things with loads of different hand fingers things, and they're just pressing all the... I've seen some insane shit, but not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the coordination to actually play 30 phones at the same time. But what they have, and it is... So they're saying it's hard to prevent players from playing through emulators altogether, and we won't be offering any technical support for them. So they can't stop us from multi-boxing. Multi-boxing will be a thing, and it's something they can't, there isn't a way to do anything about it, which is good for me in some ways, because I will be emulating as well as playing on my phone. My main account will always be on my phone, and my alt accounts and my PI for my industry and other things will be on my PC. Like I will always be PvPing on my phone. I won't be PvPing or using all of the accounts emulated to PvP. I don't PvP like that. That's just, they're pointless. I've seen people do it, and some people even got banned because they were using emulators with auto clicker shit on it, but that's a story for another time. So the next one we have, in your opinion, will the mobile platform be able to handle the complexities of a game like Eve Echoes on the low end, or will Echoes require more modern phones to function properly? Our game actually requires your phone to have both good network and CPU, but it doesn't mean low-end phones are excluded. We are actively optimizing the game to make it easier to access. The problem is that you won't be able to use a Galaxy S5 to run this game. Like, that's just not going to happen, and eventually there'll be a limit. So a lot of people that have older phones will need to purchase new phones for this game. If you couldn't play the game in beta, you most likely won't be able to play the game on that phone in release. So now is the final question. Do you have any information on whether we can customize avatars or the ability to upload our own avatars? Now this is a big one for me because I'm just a whore for graphics, man. I want my ship to look good. I want my character to look good. And if they don't look good, I don't enjoy myself. I don't know why. I'm just made that way. Due to the limited developing time, we put customizable characters as an extremely low priority. We will adjust this priority based on feedback. If our players feel strongly about having customizable characters, we encourage them to get in touch and let us know. Let them know. Everyone who watches this video, go into the Discord and say, we want customizable avatars. I don't want to look like everyone else. I don't want to I want to be able to like fly into a system and see, oh shit, there's that guy just by his picture. Like, it is good. In EVE Online, people are like recognized by their avatars and like by what they look like. It's very real for me. I believe that's a strong one. And that's all we have for the questions and answers today. I hope you found some information, and I hope some of them didn't piss you off as much as they will piss off some people. Please let me know down below what your favorite answers are and what ones you hated, if you hated anyway, because they all have their reasoning behind it. There's limitations in mobile gaming. There's all kinds of stuff that we don't know about. Not being developers and all, we're just backseat developers sitting there all the time complaining about stuff and saying, this, you should add this to the game, you should do this, you should take this out of the game, you should not write that code that way. And we have no fucking idea how to make a game. We're just sitting there backseat driving. It's just relax. Let me know down below which ones you didn't like, and if you don't like them, comment down below. Go to the Discord and tell them you don't like that idea. They need to know the feedback in order to change the game. And that'll be all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Fly safe.